Thank you for joining me for the Age Has No Limit podcast. And during this episode, we get to learn about Stacey Peters. So, Stacey Peters describes herself as an insatiable traveler. She's lived with her family on 3 continents and has been to 70 countries and counting. She is the editor in chief of Duffelbagspouse Travels, which you can find at duffelbagspouse.com. She has a passion for history, wine, and new experiences. She's my kind of gal. And she lives, or I believe until a few months ago, lived in South Korea, and it was her third time living in South Korea. On her blog, you can find information about Korean theater, orchestral music, festivals, beautiful gardens, a lot of hidden gems that maybe we would miss on our first visit to Korea. But she's making the time to really explore some of those destinations for us. So definitely thankful to meet Stacey, and I'm looking forward to learning more about her. She is just the guest that I need right now to reignite my love of travel by actually, booking some trips. I do have some trips planned, but I need to go ahead and schedule those. So, Stacey, thanks for being a guest on the Age Has No Limit podcast, and thank you for sharing a little of your life. It's the Age Has No Limit podcast. We're here to show and prove that your age shouldn't prevent you from designing and living the life you want. I'm your host, Patrice Davis. Let's get started. So we're going to jump right into the questions. How have you managed to visit 70 countries since that first trip, I'm assuming, to the UK, to Oxford University? How have
Mhm.
you managed to, travel to 70 countries in that time frame?
My we made it it was just it became a reason to live. It was something that we decided to put a lot of interest in and back it with the money. And so when we were living in Germany, when we were living in South Korea, we took a lot of long weekend trips. And when you're living in Europe, you can get to a lot of countries without, not needing a whole lot of time.
Mhm.
And ended up going back and forth. So I would do things like I loved France. And so I went to Epernay for that's where their champagne is made.
Mhm.
And then my husband and I ran the Paris Half Marathon together.
Wow.
So to see Paris from that view. And
Yeah.
then I went with my girlfriends, and we would go to this little store called Cora
Mhm.
in France. And it was this beautiful, beautiful grocery store
Mhm.
that had mounds and just tons of bread and cheeses and wines. And we would make a day of that,
Mhm.
buying that and sitting in the parking lot in our car and and eating that or taking it to a local park.
Mhm.
There was this park in France called I can't remember the name of the park, but it was in this little town called Bitch.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I wanted to practice my French. So it was only an hour away from where I lived. So I would drive across the border and practice my French. And I went in there and I was like, oh, biche is très jolie. And the lady looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, why are you looking at me like that? And she
Mhm.
said, it's not biche, it's bitch. I was like, okay. I was taking my American sensibilities to this foreign country,
Yeah.
and I just loved it. I just loved being out of my element and trying to find different ways to explore the country so that I wasn't just going as a tourist.
Yes, that is so interesting. I find that that's hilarious. So here you are trying to I'm going to use the word, I don't want to, no, I was going to say Frenchify, but that, you're trying to add what you believe is a French pronunciation, when in
Mhm.
fact it's the pronunciation you were probably trying to avoid all along, right?
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Now, of the 70 countries that you visited, I do remember you said that you have children. About
Mhm.
how many of those 70 countries would you say your children went to, visited with you?
40 to 50.
Oh, wow.
Um, so I remember one morning when I woke up, and my husband is military and he
Mhm.
was not with us at the time.
Mhm.
And I woke my son up and I said, hey, let's go to Paris. No, I said, let's go to brunch.
Mhm.
He said, brunch? I don't want to go to brunch. He was like, I just want to play with my friends. I was like, Molly, come on, let's go. Let's go to brunch. And he was like, what country is brunch in anyway? And I'm like, it's breakfast, lunch,
Yeah. Mm, mm,
breakfast, lunch. And I walk to my bedroom and he comes in and he's like, I'm so sorry for my bad attitude. I do want to eat. I said, I know you do, son. I know you do.
mhm.
I know you do.
Wow.
But he also would say to me, I'd say, let's go to Paris for the weekend, because we were so close, I could go for the weekend and just go to the Louvre.
Mhm,
Didn't have to pack in all of these things. I could go
mhm,
whenever I wanted.
mhm.
And I said, let's go to Paris. And he's like, oh, Paris again? And I'm thinking, what Black kid says that?
I know.
You know, I praised him everywhere, and he had a really good knack for languages. So
Mhm,
when we went to Turkey, I'd
mhm,
give him a list of the popular phrases in Turkish,
mhm.
and he would learn them, and he would speak to the
Mm.
locals in Turkish. And
Wow.
and the same thing with French and German. Matter of
Mhm,
fact, my youngest one called me a couple of years ago when we'd left Germany, and he's
mhm,
like, Ma, how do you say such and such in German? And I'm
mhm.
like, why? And he's like, oh, the girls love it when I speak German. I'm like, German, really?
I know that's interesting of all languages because actually my daughter is fluent in German. She's been taking German classes since the seventh grade, and in high school she continued it. In college, and she graduated from college. She continued it in college every year, and so now, and of course, she's actually gone to visit Germany twice. And I used to tease her like, "Wow, I would." When I would try to pronounce some of the words, I'd be like, that's probably one of the languages that I find most interesting, right, to the ear. And I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm going to leave it at that. But she loves it, and I think it's because it opens up just another world for her. And so that's kind of interesting that the girls loved it when he spoke in German.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty strange too. But yeah, I think that it's just that reach that reach for a different something different, you
Exactly.
know. And
Exactly.
German is one of those languages. It's not that hard to learn because
Hmm.
so much of German
Hmm.
are based in English words.
Yes, absolutely.
So, fork is fork in German, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Wow, interesting. So, as I was preparing for the episode, I thought about the thousands of military spouses around the world, and I kept thinking to myself, I don't know if another one, and they probably exist. I probably just haven't come across their blog or some of their content, who's
Mhm.
actually taken the time to feature the beautiful destinations that they are having to experience. They get an opportunity to experience. So, what was it that made you decide, you know what? I'm really doing some amazing things. It's time for me to document my travels.
Um, when the locals were like, "Where did you find that out? How did you know about that?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "This is your country. Why don't you know about
You know,
it?"
right?
And it was we were traveling so much that my relatives, I cannot remember, it was not MySpace, it was some other platform that has come and gone,
Mhm,
but that was where I started.
mhm,
And they were asking me, where are you going next?
mhm,
What are you going to do next? And I would post all of these pictures, but it didn't allow me to like elaborate on what I was doing.
mm,
And so I just decided to create the blog because it was just a way for me to connect with my family
mhm,
and also to put all of these pictures somewhere
mhm.
um,
Yeah.
that I could go back and look at again.
Mm,
And people really enjoyed the conversations I was having with myself, really.
mhm,
And so it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. That was what I
mm.
did.
And I remember you saying that you're one of the few BIPOC, travel bloggers that is actually showing the world the way that you're doing it. And you're doing it by visiting the nooks and crannies of different countries. And I think that's what makes you stand out, at least for me. A lot of people tend to go to some of the big cities or maybe even the secondary cities. You're finding, again, those nooks and crannies. You're featuring Korean orchestral music. You're featuring Korean theater, all the things that I would have loved to do. Uh, but you are doing this, and that's what's so amazing about your content. For those of you who love culture and love travel, Duffel Bag, and I want to make sure I get that website correctly. Duffelbagspouse.com is a great place to really immerse yourself into some of the destinations where Stacey's been. So, but speaking of the blog, right? Let you first answer that question. What made you decide to really, showcase what you were doing?
Because a lot of the places that I went to, the only other person of color I saw was when I looked in the mirror. It got to the point where my husband was over tipping people because he
Mm.
wanted them to remember that this Black person was
Yes.
there and didn't stiff them on a
Yeah.
tip, you know.
Wow.
And I didn't see a whole lot of other people that looked like me doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of other BIPOC bloggers and content providers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really admire a lot of the stuff that they do because I have a little corner of what I enjoy doing. I don't try and do everything because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not an expert on everything. So when you come to my blog, it's a specific thing. It's the wine, it's the parks, it's the hiking, it's the those
Mm-hmm.
things that I enjoy doing because I can speak on those without um feeling like I'm not who I am.
Yeah.
So, but there are a lot of people out there that do adventure blogging. They do luxury travel, which
Mm-hmm.
I have no interest in doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just the luxury of traveling to me is just
Mm-hmm.
something that a lot of us don't get that opportunity to do.
Yeah.
And when I realized that so few people had even a passport,
Yeah.
um, it was just amazing to me. Or that, people think you have to have all of this money to travel, and you don't necessarily have to have the money.
Mm-hmm.
You need some money, of course,
Yes.
but it's about the time. You have to invest the time, and you have to make it a priority.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will love to go traveling, but what I found was a lot of people were taking my itineraries and just duplicating them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they weren't interested in doing their own research, and that's the part that extends travel for me. I love that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, I'll put it in a place where it's accessible to people so that they can enjoy those things that I like to do too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so interesting you say that. So, and to really reiterate what Stacey's saying, there are quite a few BIPOC travel bloggers out there, and you're absolutely right. They have their own corner. They have their own areas and things that they want to focus on. And I remember actually, when I started, delving into the travel blogging space, mine was again my own corner. But what I think is also unique about yours is, again, as you said, the nature, the hiking, but also you're doing it as a person in her 50s, I presume. You're not necessarily interested in taking the most Instagram perfect pictures, even though your pictures are beautiful, especially some of the ones that I saw at the coffee shops and the different places that you've actually explored. But you're doing it in a way that, as you said, is authentic to you, and actually represents something that you can actually speak on. So I appreciate you. Um, I would definitely say taking the initiative to share this part of your life and opening up the world to those of us who haven't been able to do that yet. So I hope you realize that that's a huge contribution. You're opening up the world for people that look like you, and certainly for the people who are interacting with you in some of these far corners of the world. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank
Uh,
you.
so speaking of your blog, and I'm going to talk a lot about the blog because you were just doing amazing work there, and I want people to go check it out. You wrote a blog that really caught my attention, and that was the particular blog about the 7 ways that travel teaches us about ourselves. And the one that really stuck out to me of the 7 ways was when you wrote, when you decide that you don't need to actually take the photos. Actually, I think it was when to take photos and when to live in the moment. And I
Hmm.
thought that was absolutely true because I remember the last time I traveled and I was so enamored with what I was seeing. And I was about to take out my camera. And then I said, you know what? No, this is something I really need to enjoy. And so you really do have to decide, okay, when to take in the moment versus when to take a picture. So tell me what made that actually, when did that stick for you?
Actually, so I don't know if you've ever watched the movie. What is it? Something Walter Mitty.
The name sounds
Um,
familiar.
yeah, it's The Incredible Life of Walter Mitty or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's traveling to the depths of Siberia or something, looking for Sean Penn because he's this wildlife photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And he finds this rare creature. It's a white snow leopard or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it took forever to get there and to set this up. And then when he finally does see it,
Mm-hmm.
Walter Mitty asks him, well, when are you going to take the picture? And he's like, I'm not. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
take the picture. And he's like, but that's what you came here for. And he's like, yeah, but look at that creature. It's so
Yes.
beautiful. I don't
Yeah.
want to look at it through my camera lens.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of those instances myself. For example, I went to Seknomsa Temple in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all female monks there.
Mm.
And they're stunning monks. They have no hair, they're all bald, and
Mm-hmm.
they're beautiful. And when I went in there, one of the monks, they all came up to me to talk to me, but one of them wanted to touch my hair, and I had long twist.
Mm-hmm.
And she was twisting my hair in her fingers,
Mm.
and she's asking me how I did this, and I told her that at one point in time I had the same hairstyle she had.
Mm-hmm.
When I went natural, I did the big chop and I
Mm-hmm.
cut it all off.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went through pictures of me when I had bald head, and we were talking about this. I took no pictures that day,
Mm.
but it's one of those things that it still lives in my memory as one of my favorite moments.
Mm.
But I don't have very many pictures of
Mm-hmm.
that time because I was so focused on the conversation that I was having with these monks.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's still one of my favorite moments.
Mm.
Um, but like again, I don't have any pictures of it. I don't have any pictures of the sunrise at Angkor Wat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had the whole setup of my camera there,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't take any pictures. None.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is amazing. Because actually I was thinking, ooh, maybe I can ask her to share some of the pictures so we can put them in the podcast. But no, I definitely understand that sometimes you have to be in the moment, right?
Mhm.
And not necessarily capture the moment.
Mhm.
So you said Angkor Wat. Do you mind telling us where that is? Is that also in Korea? And exactly where in Korea, if you can give us an idea of where it is.
So Angkor Wat is in Cambodia. It's
Mm,
Siem Reap, Cambodia,
mm-hmm,
and it's the biggest temple complex in the world. At one point in time, they thought you could see it from the uh, from space, but I don't
mm-hmm,
think you could. But it's all of these different temples,
mm-hmm.
and they're it's where Angelina Jolie went in
Mm-hmm.
Tomb Raider,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's a stunning place. And they have all of these different temples, and so my husband is not a he will go to the first two temples I want to go to, maybe three. After that, he's pretty templed out. They all look alike to him. I still love the temples. He wants to find a brewery. Okay,
Yeah.
so um, he is he is a expert in beer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so when he travels, and that's another thing. When we travel together, we both have different interests. We both want to get something out of it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't drink beer. And
Mm-hmm.
so he goes to his breweries. We'll do some things together, and then he'll go to his breweries, and then I'll go to my temples or I'll go do yoga or something like that. So this day we went to the main temple, and then he was like, I'm done. And so he hired a tuk-tuk for me
Mm-hmm.
to take me to the rest of the temples that I wanted to go to. And I spent the whole day going to all of these temples. Um, but and I enjoy that. I don't. I guess now I'm not looking for a bucket list of things to do. I'm looking for things that speak to me, that are going
Mhm.
to serve me in some kind of way.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm actually there with you. I'm imagining this place, which I had not heard of before, and just go, trying to see that, just imagining that. The people that have listened to the podcast know that I'm constantly talking about really immersing myself in the culture. So I'm right there with you. Wish I was
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
Okay,
It's
but
weird
now,
though, because you think that people say, they look at me and they, oh my God, you've been to all of these countries. And I'm
Mhm,
like, yeah, I have. But each one of those times I've gone to a country, it's opened up the door to go to someplace else. So
mhm,
there's never going to be this finite
mhm,
amount of travel that I'll do, because I'm always um, uh, uh, shown something different that I could do, or a different way to explore it.
mhm,
I don't know. I don't know how long I'll be traveling, but right now I'm enjoying it.
mhm.
But yeah, there is no one way to do anything. You can find something that you enjoy doing, and you can do that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I agree 100%. Now, let's get to know Stacey Peters, the woman. So where are you from? How old are your children? And
mhm,
were you able at some point to actually work, maybe when you graduated from Oxford? Love to know what you did
mhm.
immediately after that. But yes, let's get to know who you are, Stacey.
So I'm originally from, well, I'm an Army brat. So
Mm-hmm.
my dad was also in the service. So I was born Fort Meade, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been traveling every 3 years since then. I'm 57 now.
Mm-hmm.
We have two kids, a boy and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
My son is in the university right now, and my daughter is in the Navy, and she's in Italy, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see her in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have one grandson who I ended up traveling with us because she's in the Navy. She was on ships. And so there were times where he couldn't go with her. So he stayed with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's the one that called me and asked me how to say, I can't remember what he wanted to know, but in German.
Yeah.
So I met my husband in Colorado Springs when I was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Fun fact, I was a terrible soldier. He actually said to me, he told me, he said, you're the worst soldier I've ever met. And did you just wake up and decide to be a soldier? He's
Yeah.
like, I don't, why are you here?
Yeah.
And he said, I think this is not a really good look for you. So I'm going to take you away from this and marry you because I think you'll be a great wife. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my husband is the best soldier.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great leader. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he identified that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Yeah, you're terrible." Um, and it's one of those things where you're really good in a lot of things, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't take direction very well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my dad even said that to me. He's like, "I don't really think this is a good idea, but if you're gonna do that,
Mm-hmm.
if they tell you to move this hill, this mound of dirt,
Mm-hmm.
just move it."
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that. I would always ask them, "Why are we going to move it? Because I know you're going to have me move it back." So it just never clicked for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I met him, and then we got married after about 6 months. We got married after 6 months. And we've been together since 1995. But yeah, we've had two kids, and we've been traveling ever since, just enjoying life.
Wow. Yeah, that is again. And I have to say, I remember meeting someone the other day who actually, started his career in the military. He's now practicing physician. And I remember he really broke down a lot of the benefits that he's had an opportunity to take advantage of as a result of being in the military. Things that a lot of those of us who are not in the military would be so surprised about. So
Mhm.
I do believe that it is for some people, and if you're able to maximize that experience, whether, being a career long person in the military or doing it for however long it feels right for you, and then leaving and then still being able to, sort of reap the benefits of that experience. It really, really is, I would say a career opportunity that a lot of times people poo poo, but, there may be some options there. Yes, there are some people who have some concerns about, what that could mean just in case of a conflict. But for the most part, a lot of the people that I know that are had some military background have been able to really set up their lives, for lack of a better way of describing it, in a way that works out best for them. And I think you actually wrote that your husband will retire soon. So have you decided where you live? Considering you've been to so many places, have you guys actually decided where you live after he retires?
So I have not been able to convince him to go to one of the three countries that I would like to live in,
Mm-hmm.
are Spain, Thailand, or Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
He is pretty set on living in America
Mm-hmm.
most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we are probably, well, we definitely going to be on the East Coast. We like the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not really sure yet. He still
Mm-hmm.
has about 3 more years
Mm-hmm.
in. And but the plan was always to get a house and then spend part of the time outside the country, so exploring a different place each
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're planning on doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he I think he's been in the military. It'll be about 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the military or military adjacent for 57 years. And so it's really, I think, causing me more anxiety than it is him
Mm-hmm.
because he says he's not going to chain me up to the basement. I can still travel after we get out of the military, but it's that anxiety of having to stay in one place
Mm-hmm.
that kind of has me a little nervous. So I'm excited about that. But I love my gardening, and I planted plants everywhere we've lived,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never been able to see them mature. So I'm
Wow.
also excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. So you said Spain, Indonesia, and Thailand. Do you mind
Mhm.
telling me, for each one, why each one was on your list? Why Spain? Why Thailand? Why Indonesia? Why are they your three top choices?
They are my favorite countries that I've been to, that I could live in. I've traveled to other places that I loved. Like Vietnam and Cambodia are awesome places. I don't know if I could live there.
Mm-hmm.
But Spain is just such a laid back, southern Spain. It's such a laid back, I'll get to it eventually kind of vibe,
Mm-hmm.
which works when you're going out to eat. I'm not so sure about getting the cable turned on.
Yeah.
Um, no. So it's one of those things that I love the Moorish influences of
Mm-hmm.
southern Spain,
Mm-hmm.
the architecture, the food, the cheap wine. I just
Mm-hmm.
love it.
Yeah.
Um, I love Thailand. It's probably my favorite country on the planet
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so diverse. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much you can do. So if you're living in Chiang Mai, you really can get into the mountains and the hiking.
Mm-hmm.
And the food is so good in Chiang Mai. Oh my gosh. I write a lot about Thailand on my blog, but the food is just so good there. But if you want the big city, you can go to Bangkok, and they've got malls. Like in America, malls are dying.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
In Thailand, and they are booming.
Yeah.
They are huge places where you can do anything. You can watch a movie in a bed.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, they've got movie theaters where they're beds, and you can, and they'll bring food to your bed, and you watch the movie laying down. I mean, or you could go to a 4D movie where
Mhm.
air is spouting out at you, and your seat is tilting, and there's just so many things that you can do.
Yeah.
And then Indonesia is that place that just spoke to my heart. It was
Mm.
just that place where I felt relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love the food. Thai food is really, really good too. I
Yeah.
maybe all of these places are speaking to my stomach more than anything else. But
Okay.
I just love the vibe there. It's just
Mhm.
so chill. I
Mm.
don't know about right now. They're
Mhm.
having a problem right now,
Mhm.
um, from because of the Ukraine incident.
Mhm.
They've got a lot of Ukrainians and Russians coming in
Mhm.
to Bali and Indonesia.
Mhm.
But other than that, it's that place that just kind of spoke to me.
Mm, wow. So you are definitely stimulating my interest in Thailand. So I've always been interested in going to Thailand, and I'm familiar. I think you said
Mhm,
Chiang Mai. I know other people who've gone and documented their
mhm,
experience there. But after hearing it from you, a person who's visited 70 countries,
mhm.
and I think I'm going to kind of move it up further on my to travel list.
Oh yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Now,
And
so
Thailand was the only place that we went to multiple times when we lived in Korea. So we
mm,
went to Thailand 4 times in
mm.
after COVID.
Yeah.
And we just kept going back because Chiang Mai is my favorite. But
Yeah.
but if you like the beach, you can go to Phuket and
Mm-hmm.
Koh Samui.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got everything. So you've got the mountains, you've got the beaches, you've got the city, you've got really, really good food and nice people. They
Yeah.
are nice. They're just
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
They will try to sell you something on the street and you say no, and they say, kapun kai, they just
Mm-hmm.
go on about their business. They're not, why don't you want this?
Yeah.
To buy this, right? They're not like that at all. They're
Yeah.
not pushy at all.
Yeah, that is, yeah. So yes, I'm moving it up on my list. You know what I think I'm going to do. So I typically have an annual list. And I think that's what I think what you're inspiring me to do is have just a full list of countries that I want to visit. I
Mhm,
typically have an annual list because I'm tackling it 4 to 6 countries at a time per
mhm,
year. But now I know, you know what? Let's think about what all the countries that you want to visit. I mean, I don't think it will be a complete list, but at
mhm.
least have those. And so thank you for sharing more about your experience in
What I
Thailand.
would tell listeners is that you can have that list of places that you want to go, but
Hmm.
think about what you want to do. So,
Absolutely.
because each country is not, I wouldn't go to Bali for the beaches, although
Hmm.
people do go there for the beaches. I don't think the beaches in Bali are all that beautiful.
Hmm.
But the beaches somewhere else are stunning. I
Yeah.
would go to Bali for, a yoga retreat or
Hmm.
to just enjoy the villa life
Hmm.
and the countryside.
Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
there for the beaches,
Yeah.
but so you really need to know what you want to do when you get there, so that you
Hmm.
don't go somewhere just because everybody else is going there. You have something that you want to do. That
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you also that I'm glad you brought that up. So there are actually some beautiful islands in the Philippines, and I didn't realize there were like 17,000 islands that make up the entire country of the Philippines. And there is a particular island that they call the most beautiful place in the world. I don't remember the name of this place right now. It starts with a C, so it may come to
Mhm,
you faster than it comes to me.
mhm,
So that is probably going to be one of my first stops when I actually make it to that side of the world. But yeah,
mhm,
I think for me, you're absolutely right. It's about what you want to do. I tend to think I want to go there so I can determine what I want to do. Now, I do actually research and study before I go,
mhm.
but yeah, I think that's an excellent point. That's an excellent way to look at it because you're absolutely right. A lot of times we hear about Bali but we're not thinking, why are we going? Are we going only to experience it because so many others have experienced it and they have all these pictures on Instagram? Or do we want to go there to learn more about the culture? For me, it's always going to be culture centered.
Right.
Always. So yeah, I'm always going to kind of dip my foot as much as I can into the culture. Now,
Right.
it's interesting you mentioned that your husband wants to settle in the US, and of course you guys will still more than likely travel as much as you want.
Mhm.
But you actually said that one time you had a conversation with some women about what makes a good wife. And if you can share what you said, and also the response of the women, because I think, guys, this is where the conversation may change a little because I think she has a very great point, and I'd love for you to share it with us. So yeah, please tell us what you think makes a good wife and what the response was from the women.
So this shocked me. It really did shock me
Hmm.
because I went to an event with my husband, and
Hmm.
these ladies approached me because they found out we had been married for almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so how do we get that? What do we do to get that? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you do? And they're like, what's the secret? And I said, there's no secret. I said, there's no secret. I said, you have to be submissive,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they just thought that was the dirtiest word on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's not that you lose yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it's like the military. There's got to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has to lead. And I follow my husband's lead.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that and gone to almost 80 countries.
Mm-hmm.
My house is decorated the way I want it decorated. I still have my friends. I still do all of these things. He's not trying to dictate what I do.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and we're following his plan.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me, "Oh no, I can't do it. I can't. I can't do that. I can't. No, I'd rather just be on my own." And I'm like, you know, that's up to you too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they didn't like that. I said that a lot of women are wearing too much makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Men don't know what you really look like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the bat wing eyelashes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You can fly off on those things. I'm like, no, they're too long.
Yeah.
You know, the
Mm-hmm.
nails that are out to here. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you clean yourself?
Yes. Yeah.
What's you, you're kebabbing yourself every
I know.
time you go to the bathroom. What
I
is
know.
up with that? You know,
Uh,
no one has hair down to their ankles.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
We don't need to do all of these excesses, and men are telling us that they don't like it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we're still doing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like, well, I don't listen to anybody tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you listen, and then what I said to them was, you work.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, yeah, we work. Does your boss tell you what time to come in?
Mm-hmm.
They said, yeah. I said, does your boss tell you when you can go on vacation?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah. I like, so does your boss tell you what your tasks are during the day?
Yeah.
They said, yeah. I said, so you're listening to somebody who's paying you,
Yeah.
but you're
Mhm.
not going to listen to someone who wants to take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an excellent point. And I think, you know, I thought about this when I was preparing for this episode. And I think when you think about some of the experiences that some women have had, sometimes they're wondering, is it about the person that you choose to lead, or is it just being led? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I wonder about that. But I do remember having a conversation that was very similar, and the point that where we decided we agreed was that being submissive isn't the issue. It's understanding that being submissive isn't necessarily being secondary. It doesn't mean that you are lessening yourself. You're bringing less of yourself to the experience. It doesn't mean that you are negating anything about yourself. It's just that when you've selected a person that you think is worthy of being a leader in your life, that person is the lead of the relationship. And again, it's all about choosing wisely and
Mm-hmm.
then understanding your role and understanding that being quote unquote submissive isn't being less.
Right.
And I think that's where people probably get hung up. Like, you mean I have to give up myself or give up who I am to in this using because of this so quote unquote submission to the marriage, but it really does depend on the person. You have to
Right.
find that right leader, because some people will lead their wives to not great experiences, or
Right.
destinations, we'll call them that. So
Right.
so
But
you brought up, go ahead.
we've all picked the wrong person from time to time. I
Hmm.
can remember, I've got a history. I've got a couple of guys. I'm like, those were iffy
Yeah.
choices,
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
dated.
Hmm.
But I didn't marry them.
Yes. Hmm.
But I also didn't wait until I didn't party,
Hmm.
and then decide, oh, I'm ready to get married now.
Hmm.
At that point in time, when you get to a certain point, you get to a certain age,
Mhm.
men and women don't, their value is not on the same level. It's opposite.
Mhm.
So women's value usually starts when they're younger,
Mhm.
because they're beautiful, they're in shape, they have an open mind.
Mhm.
And then men, their value starts when they're a little later,
Mhm.
after they've worked for a while, they've gotten to a certain position in their
Mhm.
uh, employment, whatever kind of job they're going to have.
Mhm.
And then women also cannot have children
Mhm.
as long as men can.
Mhm.
And so you can't wait until you're at the end of your value with this value chart, that whatever is out there. I think everybody thinks something different about that. But you can't wait until you don't have anything to offer this
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
And a lot of us are waiting too long.
Mhm.
And that was why I really went into that piece, because we're waiting too long and expecting too much.
Mhm. Mhm.
You in the prior in the 60s, we were black women, men and women were the most married
Mhm. Mhm.
in the statistics.
Mhm.
We were the most married.
Mhm.
And then feminism happened,
Mhm.
and now we're kind of the least married.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just don't want our legacy to be baby mama
Mhm.
and um
Mhm.
baby daddy. I
Yeah.
want it to be families.
Yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of it is feminism. Well, some of it is maybe feminism. I also think a lot of it is once we were able to pursue a lot of the things that we weren't able to pursue, being, let's say, an education, and maybe a certain lifestyle, a certain kind of comfort. A lot of us decided to prioritize that. And I meant individually as women, we decided to prioritize that. And as a result, we made education and our individual successes and individual accomplishments a priority. And we can certainly understand why some women have done that.
Yes.
And sometimes that may or may not align with the person that you are trying to fit in your life. So that could be a part of it as well. But I certainly don't have the answers. But
Mhm.
feminism, some people adopted feminism, and some would dare say, white feminism. It may not necessarily work for Black women, but there
Mhm.
are those of us that are out there. But that's something to consider. I've always said, and I'm gonna put up an opinion out there, that there are certain things that the Black community cannot necessarily afford to do that other communities can. And I feel like our community's been through a lot and that we can't necessarily absorb all the shocks. Those shocks may not be as impactful as, they're going to be more impactful in our community than another community. And I'll leave it at that. I have very strong opinions about a lot of this. But it's
That's another
interesting.
that is another thing that I have to balance with
Yeah.
the book, because
Yeah.
I have very strong opinions about things, but I
Hmm.
don't want to turn people off that enjoy the travel.
Yes.
They're there for the travel. They're not there for my necessarily for my opinion
Hmm.
on the state of Black culture right now.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
am a Black woman, and
Hmm.
so I believe in I believe that politics is innately in travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think you can separate the two.
Hmm.
And so when I'm traveling, I'm also looking at what kind of government is there. How do the people feel about their leaders? I'm
Hmm.
also looking at all of that.
Hmm.
But I'm just saddened by the fact that um, sometimes, like I saw a Megan the Stallion video for the Olympics the other day.
Hmm.
I'm like, Megan the Stallion, I don't have a problem with her music, but is she representing Black culture now? Why is she doing this Olympics
Hmm. Hmm.
commercial that's being played outside the country? Do
Hmm.
people know who she is outside the country?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm looking at a lot of that kind of stuff as to what is the face that we want our people to have?
Mm-hmm.
What do we want people to see when we're outside the country?
Yeah.
Do we want them to see someone who is over tipping the taxi driver,
Mm-hmm.
or do we want to see that woman that went to London and was talking vile stuff? Can't remember her name. She's not the sexy red girl, but the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so embarrassing to me because,
Mm-hmm.
they look at me and they look at her and they think we're the same,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I've had people ask me questions in foreign countries, like what do Black people do in America, or
Mm.
what is the state of this in America? And I'm like, I can't speak for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't speak for thousands and millions of people. I
Mm-hmm.
can only speak for me.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
I
That very
just
interesting points. I remember actually as I was reading the blog, I was like, "Who's?" I read it and I was like, "Sexy Red." You had that in the blog. I was like, "Who is Sexy Red?" So I googled it. And I was like, "Oh, that's Sexy Red." So yeah, I definitely understand your
I
point of
didn't
view.
realize either until like a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, okay. I was like, well, maybe I need to broaden my musical taste. Definitely not. I'm good. I'm good with
No,
what I am. I know. I'm good. I'm good. Now, let's talk about food and wine. That's one of my favorite things that I love to join. And it's so interesting that you said that. You can learn about a culture. You actually had this, I believe, in one of your blogs that you
Mhm.
can learn so much about the culture by observing the food and the wine. It
Yep.
tells so much about the history of that country, about the topography, about
Mhm.
what they prioritize, about the
Mhm.
way they eat, about just so much you can tell about food and wine. So let's talk
Spices,
about wine.
all of that.
So, what's your favorite wine, and in what country did you have the best wine?
Ooh, so I don't know if I could pick a favorite wine. But I can pick a country that I like both the reds and the whites.
Mm-hmm.
So German wine,
Mm-hmm.
I love their crisp, clean Rieslings.
Yeah.
And then their Dornfelder, which is this really rich, fruity red,
Mm-hmm.
ruby red wine
Mm-hmm.
that is delicious. And
Mm-hmm.
you can drink it warm or room temperature, or you
Mm-hmm.
can chill.
Yeah.
um, prefer room temperature,
Mm-hmm.
but it's right there in the middle of where you can chill it or let it be at room temperature.
Mm-hmm.
But the German wines, so when I lived in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
we would have parties where we would bring the cheapest wine. It
Mm-hmm.
could not be more than ten euro.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were the most delicious wines.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're here in America, the wines, you can't get a good bottle of wine for $10.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was buying them by the cases when
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Germany. And then when I came here trying to find those same wines, I found some of them, but they were way more expensive, like three
Mm-hmm.
times as expensive as I could
Yeah.
buy them in Germany.
Yeah.
And then I found that they were actually exporting a wine that Americans would like.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't exporting the ones that I was enjoying in Germany, but the
Yeah.
ones that people would like here. So it's like they were Americanizing wine.
Yeah.
And so when I lived there, bought it by the cases, and people would ask me, well, they have wine in America. Why are you buying 3 cases of that wine? I'm like, because I could this 3 cases of this wine, each bottle is worth $3,
Yeah.
where it's going to be 30 when I get back to America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the food is, you find that the food tells you a lot about their history, using what spices they use,
Mm-hmm.
the temperature of certain foods. Um, we don't have a lot of cold soups here, but they have a lot of cold soups, or the fact that you can order a salad in the majority of the world and they just bring you a salad. They don't ask you what salad dressing you want
Yeah.
because they have one salad dressing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas here they got 20 different salad dresses that you can get on your salad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Korea and Germany is one salad dressing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you would find that the food that you would eat here, so Chinese food here is way different than Chinese food in China.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like Chinese food in China.
Mm-hmm.
but eating Chinese food in America, I do. I love it. It's one of my
Mhm.
favorites. But I
Mhm.
did not like the way they prepare it in China. It's very
Mm.
green meat in China. Um,
Oh.
it's different. It's completely different.
Mm.
And so and then when you're living in Korea, um, they Koreanize everything.
Mhm.
So if you go to an Italian restaurant, it's really a Korean restaurant. They kind of have like something that you might have had in Italy, but they Koreanized it. So they use
Yeah.
all the same Korean spices.
Mhm.
Um, they did the same. They did that with pizza. They did
Mhm.
that with pasta, with
Mhm.
um, anything that you would like at another place.
Yeah.
They changed it. So it was never just, and I wrote about that a lot too, and
Mhm.
about it not being Italian food. It's
Yeah.
really Korean Italian food.
So, so it's interesting you mentioned German and that you
Um,
like the wines in Germany.
um,
So the one time I went to Germany, I actually went to, oh, I can't remember the name of that town, but it's it's actually in German wine country. And my Airbnb hosts, who were the best Airbnb hosts I've ever had, they actually took us into wine country, took us through the vineyards.
mhm,
Why can't I remember the name of the place where my daughter, but Trier. And it sounds very French because it's only about 30 miles from France. And so I had some of the best Riesling. They did mention that other wine as well, the red wine. I also had apple wine made from
mhm,
apples. I don't remember the name of it, but it was such an amazing experience. And they sent us home with a lot of wine.
mhm,
And I meant literally we had to wrap it up and put it in our suitcases. So it was you're absolutely right. And I have not been able to find a Riesling like that since I've been here. And to be honest, I don't even look. I've decided
mhm,
that when I want to enjoy really good wines, I'm going to stay with the South Americans, which I know I can get some decent South American wines
mhm.
here. But when I travel to different parts of the world, that's when I'll look for those region specific wines. So,
My
yeah,
favorite, one of my favorite.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
you were saying?
It's one of my favorite souvenirs.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
So, um, you will be launching a line of travel bags, accessories, and other travel related items soon. So, tell me what made you decide to do that, and what's going to be the first product that you launch, and where can people find it when it is launched?
So I'm in the process of designing the bags now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and doing the prototypes. They will be available on my blog eventually,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not that far into it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still looking for a manufacturer. I've looked at two so far, but they didn't have the quality that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was always something that I wanted to do, and now that um, I guess now that we're getting ready to retire, it's
Mm-hmm.
something I could spend a little bit more time on. So I always wanted to do something, and that was why I named it Duffelbag Spouse, because that was always the that was always the end product that I wanted to have. Was a
Mm-hmm.
line of duffel bags
Mm-hmm.
and travel accessories. So we're not close enough yet
Mm-hmm.
to talk about that, but I'm please come to the blog and follow the journey on that one too. So I'll be
Okay.
documenting as well.
Excellent. And are you do have an email list? Do you currently have an email list so that you can announce it to some of your
Mhm.
are you yeah, okay, good. Absolutely,
I do
absolutely.
do a quarterly newsletter.
Okay. Okay,
Mhm.
excellent. So that means, guys, expect to, go to her website. I want to make sure I get it correct. It is duffelbagspouse.com, DUFFELBAGSPOUSE, right? So duffelbagspouse.com. And so no information on the launch date yet.
Mhm.
And do you have an idea whether or not you're going to actually maybe release I think you said you were going to actually release itineraries or
Mhm.
tell me, so do you plan on maybe launching that first, or what are your thoughts about what the approach in which you're going to launch your products?
So I do itineraries now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you are interested in an area that you're not familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
do contact me. I do have a
Mm-hmm.
list of different itineraries, and I could design one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Right now I write for a lot of companies who travel companies who don't have writers on staff, and
Mm-hmm.
so they want to have travel content on their blog. So I do a lot of that. So
Mm-hmm.
if people are interested in that, and then I also freelance with photography.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to. I've started stocking um, uh, travel. That was one of the things that I had a problem with when I was started writing. I could not find images of
Mm.
Black people doing what I was doing
Yeah.
unless I took the picture. And so
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to get a list of stock images
Mm-hmm.
of us traveling and doing those things that you see everybody else doing, but there are
Yeah.
no pictures of us doing.
Wow. You can that could be its own business, right? I
Mhm.
don't know if that could be its own business. You're probably thinking develop a line of stock images for some
Mhm.
of the bigger like the I what is it, the iStock, the Pexels,
Great.
the Shutterstock. So you can definitely approach them and say, "Hey, I have this." And for those of us who I had a travel blog. You're right. I couldn't find pictures of us. And so I would make do. But
Mhm.
yeah, me even starting that as its own business, I think
Yeah.
would probably, so I don't know if that's the approach that you're taking, but yeah, there may be something there. So I hope you have, a lot of success with that because
Mhm.
it really is needed. And not only that, I think it's also because there are a lot of pictures of people on Instagram doing really Instagram worthy things, extremely beautiful photos, but there isn't, like you said, one place where you can have that collection of photos of
Mhm.
diverse people. We'll just focus on Black people
Mhm.
that are enjoying traveling, doing a lot of things in different destinations in the world.
Mhm.
So what does an age has no limit life look like for a person who's lived in, I'm sorry, who's visited 70 countries and lived on 3 continents?
Um, I I think it's different for everybody else. For me, it's doing what makes me feel um happy.
Mm,
Um, I know that you cannot be happy 24/7, every day of the year. Um, but I want to live a life that says that I can stay as healthy for as long as I can.
mhm,
So it's doing the exercise, knowing that you have to do it for the rest of your life, not thinking that you can do it for a little while, but knowing that it has to be a part of your daily routine,
mhm,
trying to eat well, and then surrounding myself with positive energy. So people who are like-minded, who love the same things that I love to do, and my family.
mhm,
That's what it's about for me. I don't really need a whole lot.
mhm,
Um, just knowing that I am living every day the best way I can.
mhm.
Not hurting anybody, not trying to be somebody I'm not. Just loving the life that I have. That's what
Mm.
it means to me.
So, and this is our last question for you. What country have you not visited, or more than one, that you're eager to visit?
Um, Peru.
Hmm.
I would
Okay.
love to go to Peru.
Mhm,
Um, and the other place would be the Philippines that you mentioned.
mhm,
There were three times that I booked trips to the Philippines, and the weather
mhm.
has created a problem that I couldn't go. So those two countries are the places that I would love to go.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Stacey, it's been amazing learning about you, about your life, about your travels, about the destinations where you visited, the places where you've actually lived, and, even learning about your son and his "Are we going to Paris again?" response. That is amazing. And you are definitely inspiring to those of us who want to do at least a little of what you're doing. And as I've said earlier in the episode, having your blog Duffelbag Travels, I want to make sure at duffelbagspouse.com is a window to the world for those of us who are either afraid to fly or they just don't realize, as you said, that, traveling the world isn't as expensive as we think. And
Mhm.
it's a matter of people actually taking that first step. So I
Mhm.
thank you for spending some time to tell us a little bit about your life and sharing some of your opinions. And I fully understand some of your points of view. So absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for spending some time with us here on the Age Has No Limit podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. And also, get out there and explore your local area.
Mhm.
There's some great restaurants that you might not have known that feature, a foreign cuisine.
Mhm.
There are a lot of festivals
Mhm.
uh, out there, like the Holly festivals that that are out there. You can travel in your local area and
Mhm.
travel outside your comfort zone. So take advantage of that because that's what it's for. So
Excellent point.
you don't have to get on a plane all the time.
Excellent point. Yep, you're absolutely right. Explore those areas, those unique communities, those, that are populated by different immigrants. There's so much you
Yeah.
can learn just by going to those pockets of your city. So, absolutely great point. So, thanks again. And for those of you who are listening, Stacey's just another example that age has no limit.